Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you all for being here. This is Real Talk with Ryan. It is the 17th of June, and it's a Wednesday afternoon, and we are honored and blessed to have Nathan Craig on from Culture Insurance. Nathan is a insurance broker in town. He's going to tell you a little bit about his story, why he does what he does, but really a terrific individual as a person, does great work and support for his clients, and really has a purpose behind why he does what he does. And any of you that's been on these calls so far, we really spend a lot of time on talking about, you know, what someone wants to do and why they're doing what they're doing and how it benefits the community. So Nathan, we are excited to have you. Thank you for being on today. We'll stop and have questions verbally from time to time, but we encourage you to use the chat. I've got the chat category up so I can see it. So you have specific questions, feel free to chat in any kind of question you want. I'll work them in to the content, but I'll also give an opportunity to ask questions directly as we go along. So with that, we'll get started. And Nathan, that was a brief introduction that I gave you, but I'd love for you to just introduce yourself and just talk about your company, why you started your company, and a few minutes on what you do, but spend more time on why you saw that need and what you're actually doing, and then we'll take it from there and get into the rest of your story.
Yeah. Well, look, I couldn't have talked nicer about myself than what you did. So thanks for that very kind intro. I'm blushing. Good thing I have a fairly bad webcam, so you can't tell. So Culture Insurance, the genesis started after working 6 years, and I started working when I was 14. You can barely tell, but that was a little while ago. I feel like I've been one of those people who's kind of had that journey that saw some good leadership, saw some companies making some changes that I liked, but most of it was just not healthy. It wasn't healthy work environments. A lot of leadership that I didn't want to be like. After spending some time working for someone else and feeling the dissonance of an industry that has some really good actors in it, there's also some that give us the used car salesman reputation, if you will. And not that there's anything wrong, of course, with used car salesmen, and so for us, it just became this, I didn't want to be where I was at anymore. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to make a change. I had all this sort of passion for I love the insurance industry, but it wasn't serving people well. It wasn't being socially responsible at all. And it wasn't even being environmentally responsible as an industry, still printing out massive packets. Everybody's had an open enrollment meeting that had 1 tree per person handed out. And those little things that it just wasn't sitting right as I was evolving as a person and growing into what I'm passionate about in my life. And so that was March of 2016, started an insurance agency that at this point is evolved into what it is today, Culture Insurance Group, where we serve companies with their insurance needs ranging from my area of expertise, which is the employee benefits, group health, dental, vision, life, disability, that sort of arrangement, to my partner with the other side of the house. Chad runs the risk management, which is commercial lines like workers' comp, liability, cyber liability, employment practices, et cetera. And in approaching insurance through a lens that says there are people on the other side of these policies. And a company is in a privileged, every single company is in a privileged position to impact the lives of those that depend on them. And so how do you do insurance in a way that meets those needs, that informs people's lives for the better? So that's the motivation, and that's why we're not going to, we won't stop, can't stop, won't stop. We're going for it.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, you said a couple things in there I want to focus on and get your feedback and elaborate a little bit on 2 things. So the first one is, at some point you had to take that leap. And people have these ideas about, wow, I'm seeing this need and I'm seeing my industry, which I like and I'm involved in, provide a service that's necessary, but I'm seeing them do it in a way that's not socially conscious, in a way that just doesn't benefit people the way I think that they could be. But at some point, something has to trigger that change where you're feeling like, well, it's time for me to take that leap. What was that process like for you, and how long did it take? Someone once asked me, I saw you made a big change. How long did it take you to make the change? And my response was, 6 months, but 10 years to think about it. So
Yeah,
how
that's
was
so
that
right.
process for you?
That's so right. It was a long enough for me. It was years of dissonance, and then it was the moment of, I don't know if I have a parachute on or not, but I'm jumping out of this plane. It kind of, that's sort of that transition. At some point, you just go like, I have to do this, and I don't know enough to not do it to some extent. I mean, I might be that guy, right? There's different wirings, and some people will take the far more calculated approach. I'm a little bit more of this needs to be done. I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to go. So I would say that it was something that was on my mind for years. Since I was probably 16, I knew at some point I needed to work for myself. I just knew that, because I just already 3 years into working, I just went, where's all the people who take care of people? Where do those people go? Like, where's the people who are in business for something more than money, right? Not just money. And so, but everything changed over the course of, really, I would say it took 45 days. It was a couple of key things where I was working that I just said, that does not align with my values. I cannot continue to be in a place where my values are at odds with the way that the company was treating people within the company, the goals and mission of the company, and the way that we were not practicing what we preached as it relates to consulting companies on why benefits matter, why it matters that you care about your employees. And I just went, we're not practicing what we preach. I can't do this anymore. And so that 45 days, at that point, I was like, I'm doing this,
Wow, that's an impressive turnaround, and to have that kind of level of faith or courage is amazing.
That's pumping it up, Ryan. I mean, it might be naivete and ignorance too. There's a fine line between those things sometimes.
Well, fair enough. But you said something earlier also about having the other side of the house and having a partner that handles that piece, and recognizing in yourself where your strengths are, and recognizing in yourself where you have an element that's missing, whether that's a character, a skill, a talent, a personality type. When I've done businesses by myself, and I've done them with partners. And in this business that I'm in now, I recognized here are some elements that I'm missing, and some personality traits that I'm severely lacking. I need to go find those in someone that balances me. And I went out and found people that matched my value scheme, that had a similar vision, and that have really helped advance our organization forward. And I know that's a critical piece for you. So talk us through the partner selection, because a lot of us in business struggle with, I don't know if I can do this by myself, or don't want to do this by myself. And everyone I've ever talked to says partners are the worst. And I know that's not true. I'm a living proof that that's not true, but it only matters if you select the right one. So how did you go through that process and identify the right partners for you?
Yeah. Well, I needed someone who wasn't like me. So I first had to find somebody who clearly worked out a bunch. And so I did that, and somebody who had great hair. So I'm pretty shallow when it comes to that stuff. No, look, I'm with you. I've heard it all too. I've heard, don't ever go into business with anybody else. Those same people typically are the ones who say, don't ever get married. It's the worst decision you'll ever make. It's to some extent, it's just people who maybe they don't know how to select partnership in their life. I don't know. There may be that may be a stretch, but I think there's some similarity there. Chad, it was the first partner to join up, where that's when culture itself was actually officially established. I had started an agency called 3C Insurance Services, and part of our core value was culture. And as Chad and I came together through a professional introduction, somebody played matchmaker, and we got to chatting. That's when we honed in on this culture thing is what we really care unequivocally about. We have to be committed to this. But yeah, so for us, it started with common life values, things that we would each say are non-negotiables, that it's people over money, right? Our job is to love people, not make money. And so are we going to go about insurance that way? He has skills that I don't have, especially as it relates to just knowledge and industry, because the commercial piece complements benefits, but it is a distinct role or a distinct knowledge base that it's hard to be the jack of all trades there. And you typically end up being the master of none, especially in the insurance industry. You see that all too often. I knew that I wanted to be able to provide more holistic services to our clients, knowing that if you could find the commercial lines that had all the same horsepower and heart that I knew I had for benefits, then it would be a really powerful dynamic experience for companies to rethink the way they approach insurance in their company. So that's Chad came on, and then since then I have a lot of weaknesses. And then Andrew's joined us as of August of 18. He's been here for almost 2 years, and he is our managing director. And adding him to the company gave us structure that Chad and I sometimes struggle to have. Andrew's brought that to the table. So the three of us at this point, as far as just in partnership, plus an exceptional team of humans that serve our clients and bring unique skills to the table. It's been a neat evolution over the last 4 years, really.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's a struggle that so many of us go through when we're trying to identify the partners. And I want to get into some of the comments you made about values, right? And aligning your values. And I mean, your name is Culture Insurance, and I know that's part of why that name exists. But does anyone have any questions? Feel free to chat them in, or feel free to ask out loud here about some of that partner selection or starting that business. If you've got any questions about that piece, I'm happy to take them now. Okay, perfect. I'll keep watching the chat box. Again, we're on Real Talk with Ryan. This is Nathan Craig from Culture Insurance. Nathan, we're thankful to have you on, grateful for what you do for your clients and in the community. So I want to shift to the value piece. And with our business at RG Alliance, we really value the way we have taken essentially a commodity style business, right? We're doing accounting work, and we're doing marketing work, and we're doing elements of activity, payroll work that is really not that terribly diverse from it's all about culture. Well, how can accounting be about culture? It's a number on a page. And we've taken that and said, how do we take that and transform that into something that transforms lives? And I heard you say that in your product, because no one thinks insurance and thinks, oh, that's something that transforms lives. Yes, it's a safety net to keep me from collapsing if something bad happens, but it should be so much more than that. And we've taken that approach to our business with the back office solutions we provide. But when you think about your values, could you share with us what those actually are and how you align them with your business?
Yeah, thanks. So I think what makes Culture Insurance different really is how committed we are to not only the skills, because you have to have skills. I mean, you can care all day long, but if you don't know how to, perform your duties, then it's a nice heart, but you got to have the horsepower to get it done. So the skills are non-negotiable. So we're always growing and evolving. We have education focus at our company, but I don't care how much you know, if the proverbial, if I don't know how much you care. And so for us, it's about serving people. And our first core value is love people. And we think that's a life principle. Like the number one driver of the way that we engage with individuals and with humans is to love them well, which can come in the form of self-sacrifice and long suffering and discomfort, because love is not something that's easy to do. And so it's intentional. It's not mushy. It's actually a commitment in terms of how we're going to treat people. And then I would say too that, again, you don't get to turn that on and off. So these are the people that are going to align with Culture Insurance are people who are living this way in every way of their life. It's not something you just flip on in business and then flip off in your personal life. It's got to be on all the time as a way of doing life. But we also are committed to enjoying the process. We're not one to shy away from a good happy hour if circumstances allow for it. Celebrate the wins, to enjoy our clients' wins as they grow and as they succeed. We love just enjoying their success and sharing in that with them, because we think that you should take time to celebrate the wins along the way for in life and also in business. So yeah, and then part of that too is knowing that because we're all human, and I think you know this, and everybody that's done any profession for any number of time knows that mistakes happen. You have to own those. There's a humility that comes with the way we want to do business. It says if we mess up, we're gonna lean in, we're gonna wear it, and we're gonna move forward together, because this is a partnership. It's a partnership made up of humans. So those are the kinds of things that we like to remind ourselves all the time, but that we promise to our clients. And it's the kind of thing that, you know, back to partners in marriage. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I promise to my wife. I promise it to my kids. I promise it to my church. You know, like these are the kinds of things that you can't just turn them on and off. They have to be part of who you are.
No, I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of times people think that, well, I'm here in this environment, so I need to behave this way because that's consistent with the result I'm trying to achieve. And I always believe that your values really have to overwhelm who you are in your whole life. And if you just exist the way you naturally exist, it's so much easier, and you can accomplish so much more to elevate the community and to help those around you. And so I appreciate you saying that about those values. And there's two ways people communicate these. And I'm going to ask a question at the end of the statement. The first is they tell people, right? You say it over and over, and you repeat it, it's repetitive. You say, this is what I stand for. But the most important way is to live it, right? So when you say it, people are like, oh yeah, that, of course, I know that. You don't have to say that. I already know that that's the way you live. How do you demonstrate that in the community for you, so that those that come in contact you don't have to be told this is who you are, but just know it because of how you live?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know, you know, it's funny because part of the things that go off on my mind when you ask that question is like, I don't know, maybe I should just like get my wife on here real quick, and she can tell you where I fail at this and where I'm good at these things and whatnot. But I don't know, she wouldn't want to be on camera. Maybe the thing that comes to mind is this. It is something that I do think you need to constantly preach to yourself, because as much as we believe these things, you need to be reminded of them, right? Your own core values, your own core convictions, the things you believe the most, they do need reinforcement over time. So it's not something that you can say once and then you're set. It's something that needs to be constantly preached, you know, in the way we do business, and the way we talk to within the context of our employees and our partnerships, is asking questions around those core values constantly. So it is an ongoing message and reminder to ourselves. But the reality is this: what you truly believe manifests itself in the way you behave. And that's what you're saying, Ryan. I mean, you can't say, I believe that people are important, and then treat them like garbage. Or you can do that, but then everybody knows you don't actually value people. You're treating them like garbage. And so, it has to manifest itself. As it relates to outside of culture insurance, one of the things that I would say I'm especially thankful for and proud of is that we see our roles in culture insurance. Like Chad and I each serve on a board of directors for nonprofits that we care passionately about what they're doing. Chad's really involved, and has been for years, been involved in the San Diego Discovery Children's Museum in Escondido. He grew up in Escondido, so we wanted to keep close to where he grew up and a community he's passionate about. Our office is in Escondido, partly for that same reason, wanting to serve Escondido and North County and in a lot of different ways. And so, yeah, Chad's given a lot there to see them through various transitions that they've had to go through, and a lot of hard work, and put in a lot of hours there to care for the kids, especially that value those services. And then I'm incredibly thankful to be part of Free to Thrive, which is an organization providing primarily free legal services to victims of human trafficking, to help them come out of human trafficking and then get their lives right, because a lot of them have a criminal record that inhibits them from certain successes afterwards. And so it's an organization that is unique because it's lawyers that have committed themselves to nonprofit work and are helping these victims come through human trafficking. And that's evolving even now as it relates to COVID and various injustices, and how we're trying to figure out what more should we be doing. But but those are the kinds of things that we feel like we don't do it as a gimmick. We do it because we don't know how not to do it. We have to do these things. Like, this is part of our responsibility in our own roles and in our own opportunities to serve in our community in ways that we can.
Well, I appreciate that, Nathan. Anybody has any questions, feel free to use the text chat. Questions about how Nathan has moved forward in his business. Any questions about anything he says or comments you want to add and contribute, feel free to drop those in the chat line, and I'll work them in. We'll open up for questions in a little bit as well. Again, I'm here with Nathan Craig, the founder of Culture Insurance. And you made a comment a minute ago about errors and mistakes and forgetting or having to be reminded of what those values are, because it's so easy to get dragged down or pulled down by those around you and by business just getting in the way, life getting in the way. And so I have two questions. I'm going to ask them at the same time, and you can take them wherever you want. So I think it'd be really valuable to everyone on the call and anyone that listens in the future to this, as I think it says a lot about who you are. I've always said, for me, that you learn more about someone's character from how they deal with the mistakes that they make than if they were perfect all the time. And so I'm going to ask you, if you would, talk about some of those kinds of mistakes and how you own them. You said, we'll wear it, we'll own it. How you dealt with that and the kind of effort you put into to fixing things that are at error and learning from them. And second is, you mentioned the idea of it's easy to get dragged down and forget. How do you fight back against those times when sometimes you have to question, man, is this the right value? Am I making the right choice? It seems like I'm not getting anywhere with this. And something has to happen to remind you. Talk to us about both of those channels, because they have to run parallel. And when you make mistakes, boy, it's easy to get discouraged and forget that, oh, I'll just abandon my values to solve this problem, when you just can't do that.
Yeah, good questions. I would say that as a way of reminder, one of the things that is one of the more important lessons that I've had to learn is that my mistakes or my shortcomings does not make me a failure, does not make me a loser, my identity is not tied up in my mistakes, outside of the fact that I make mistakes because I am human. And so when you can separate the mistake from your identity, you become less defensive about it, less controversial about it, and you can resolve the issue. And you say, all right, so we didn't get this employee enrolled in their plan. So my first thing that happens is I am sad that I've caused an inconvenience for somebody because they had a problem come up. And one of the things that I care so much about is that people don't have to think about their insurance, because it works. Like, they go to the doctor, the mom goes with her kid, she shows up at the doctor, she sees the doctor, she's already inconvenienced enough to have a sick kid that needs to go to a doctor. I don't want her getting to the front desk and them saying, I'm sorry, we don't see you in the system. Right. And so then that's when the problem is first identified. Somebody calls and says, hey, so-and-so's not they're at the doctor's office or with their kid right now, the kid's screaming and they don't have insurance. We have to resolve that, get on the phone, do everything we can. But my first response is my heart breaks. I hurt for the mom who's there with her child going through that, because I don't want that for them. Right? So there's a certain level of just empathy and compassion that needs to drive your next steps, which is resolve the problem. And if it costs somebody money, if it's like, hey, give the front desk my number, let's have a conversation. We will pay for this office visit so you can go home right now, and then we'll resolve this problem. That's a no-brainer. It's money. It's money. Money is just a resource. And in that case, you leverage a little bit of money to solve this person's problem. So from my perspective, those are like the really nitty-gritty things. But it can be bigger than that. And we've had to own mistakes that cost us thousands of dollars. And it's when that's when you're really tested, because then it's like, how much money do I place on this issue? How much inconvenience is it worth? And at the end of the day, for your integrity's sake, I don't think that there's an amount of money that you should be able to put on your character, on your compassion, and on the needs of the person that you accidentally, even almost always, it's never on purpose, that you made a mistake. You got to own it. And we've even seen it differently than a client, and they believed that it was not their fault. And we were like, well, it kind of is. We know those, we've all probably been through circumstances like that too, where you go, hey, well, we did tell you to do that. You didn't do it. And then it caused this problem. But at the end of the day, right, there's an opportunity there it's to give time and or money to solve a problem, to make somebody have a happy response and to feel loved, then we're going to do that because sacrifice is worth it. The second, I think that's kind of the first thing. I mean, I could probably dig into specifics, but those were like very close to, without using kind of names and stuff like that, real examples. And what was the second question?
When you're tested in those areas, and you tried to touch on it a little bit, you're tested and your values seem to be taking you further away from success, at least what the world defines as success. It's easy to get dragged down and question that. And when you're in that state, how do you work through that to remember, here's what I stand for and why, and no matter what the consequences, I'm going to stick by who I am and what matters to me?
Yeah, well, I love that you asked that question that way, because you identified something that I think is one of the other things that makes Culture Insurance and who we are different from what I want all business. I don't even want to put us on a pedestal. What I want all businesses to think like, if I could put it that way, is making a positive impact is success. Having a positive impact on people's lives, changing lives, reforming our communities and our culture and our society is success. If money comes with that, great. But if your goal is in your drive is separated from the finances primarily, then you have a new definition of success. So in those examples, right, what the definition of success is that person's happiness, that person's problem resolved, that person having an alleviation of pain. That is success. And so for us, we're driven to be the most positively influential insurance agency in San Diego. If we can do that, we're succeeding. It's not to be the biggest. I want to be the most positively influential. So our metric for success is different. And that's what makes it somewhat easy. It would be a failure for us to make money in exchange for positive impact. We failed. We didn't even succeed. I actually feel like I lost.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I know your character. I've known you for a long time, and I really appreciate that you stand by what you value at all costs. And that's rare in people. And so I commend you, and I know everyone that comes in contact you commends you and your organization for what you do with that. I want to flip a little bit. And again, I'm here. This is Real Talk with Ryan. I'm here with Nathan Craig, founder of Culture Insurance, and want to get to some cause-based, purpose-based principles in your business. So as we start to move towards that, and how you incorporate why you're in business and what difference you make in the community, because those elements really, really matter. It's not just the product you sell, but how everyone you come in contact elevates in the community. As a business owner, you've jumped in now, right? You've jumped out the plane without a parachute. Hopefully the parachute deployed. You're floating down,
I think
and
so.
Landing, or still in the air now and hoping it still opens. But two questions. What is better about this than you thought it would be? And what is not what you expected at all about running and building a business?
Well, I will say that the parachute has deployed, and one of the panels on our multicolored parachute is RG Alliance helping to sustain us. So I appreciate that, we've come into partnership with you guys, and you're one of the pieces of the fabric that holds us up, so we don't come crashing down miserably. So I would say probably what I didn't expect was how I learned a lot more about myself than I thought I would. I think most people think they know themselves pretty well. And then you get into business and you realize, man, there's a lot that I don't know. And tying it back to marriage, I think that one of the lessons of marriage is just how selfish you are. You realize, holy cow, I had no idea I was so selfish. You have kids, you like, that puts it on steroids. You're like, I had no idea even then I was still so selfish. I think business, having a company, having various forms of drive and autonomy, and trying to balance all of that out, I've had to learn a lot more about my own limits, where burnout is, where I hit max capacity, and I think that's been really valuable. Learning how to rest. So I would actually put it that way. Some people may not have the discipline to work. I think that I've had to learn over the years the discipline of rest. Like actually creating rest. And so that's been an interesting thing to learn. My wife, is really helpful because she can see when I need rest, and that helps. So does Andrew and Chad. They point out all the time, like, you're a jerk, man. You need a break. They don't say it that way, but I understand what they're saying, and they're right.
They slide you a Snickers bar. Is that how it goes?
yeah. Need a minute, bro? You need a minute?
Yeah.
No, they don't give me Snickers because they also have seen me gain weight over the years, so they know better now. They're like, you need a carrot, and they etch Snickers into it. But what I would say that has been better than I expected was how positively this message would be received in San Diego. People, I didn't know how parched people were to reevaluate the way they're approaching insurance. I didn't know how starved they were for somebody to come in and ask questions like, what do your employees really want? I mean, if nobody complains, so it's good, right? And that's not necessarily true. They could just be afraid to complain, right? And that, like, that could actually unleash a whole other set of problems that you have. So that's refreshing to me, because I want to work with companies who already care about the company culture that they have, who already care about the impact they have on their employees' lives. The hardest thing for me to do is to have that dissonance with the client where I'm saying, hey, your employees are going to be crushed by this, and they're saying, I don't care, it's worth it's $400 to me, and you're going, what are you doing? Like, what's your metric of success? And so I appreciate that there are enough companies in San Diego that value success the way that I am thankful to see. Like, I'm encouraged to see people value success in a new light. It's not all about the almighty dollar. It's about how much change you're making with that aligns with what you believe change needs to be. So that's really cool to see. Cassandra's a perfect example of that. Cassandra, like, listening to your town hall from last week, Cassandra's just exactly what she's doing. She's changing the world, and her metric of success is getting people in, having conversations that are hard but advance us as people together. That's winning. I love that.
No, thank you very much. It's so interesting when you talk about what surprises you, right? And across every business vertical, there seems to be this recurring theme that people just want to be treated fairly and honestly and openly, and to have a purpose behind why they're doing business with you, not just because it's a price thing or not just because it's a product they absolutely need, but they want to feel like there's effort and there's an improvement and a purpose behind the product that they're consuming. And then the staff who work in the organizations want to feel that way too. And so I want to highlight back something that Renee said 2 weeks ago from Renee Van Heel from Pay It Forward Processing, who was our guest 2 weeks ago. She has this Pay It Forward every swipe benefits charities, and she talked about how it's transformed her organization in a way that they recruit differently, they retain employees differently, clients do business with them differently, and it can't be this insincere or window dressing approach to, I'm going to use nonprofits or use purpose to generate gain for me. It has to be a very organic and a very real, I care about this cause. And our organization is going to support this cause, whether we have benefit or gain or not. And yes, that could benefit you, but it's really about the cause you support. So as you're thinking about volunteering and you're thinking about the boards that you're on as an organization, how would you suggest businesses who are looking at that and saying, boy, I want to get involved, I want to get my staff involved, I want them to care. How do you go about making that selection or suggesting that they get involved? And how do you create the space? Because without the space to do it, it's very difficult for people to get involved in that purpose-driven place while they're at work because they think that that's in direct conflict, and it doesn't have to be. So how would you encourage somebody in that selection and creating that space for their staff?
Yeah, it's cool. And a really, really good question. Every company has a culture, and whether they've intentionally built it or not, they have one, right? It exists. And I think that one of the hardest things for a company to do is actually figure out what that is, right? To identify what their company culture is. So I would start with, again, this is part of the reason why they don't know what their company culture is because they never ask their employees any questions. They never figured out what their employees care about. So if it came down to a company, and so Pay It Forward, which is a super cool company, been familiar with them for years, they bring transcendent purpose to something that is historically common, right? They bring transcendent purpose to it. And that's the way that I talk about this with our clients, or even to others, like, who do you want to work with? People ask me, who do you want to work with? You know, what kind of company? I just tell them, I said, I want to work with companies who already exist for a purpose bigger than themselves. You know, you've got WD-40 is a perfect example of this in San Diego. WD-40 doesn't exist to create, you know, door lubricants. WD-40 exists to change people's lives with all the different things that they do beyond what their product is. It's what their product does and the way that they as a company influence San Diego County, et cetera. So I think that companies, this is what we talked about at the beginning, Ryan, is that people either have that as a way of living, they live for something bigger than themselves, or they don't. And what I would long for is that because I think that there's joy for people existing beyond themselves. I long for people to experience what it looks like to live for something bigger than yourself, or bigger than the task that you're accomplishing at any given moment, or bigger than the gadget that you're creating, or bigger than the pets that you're watching, you know, or whatever your business is. But that you have some transcendent purpose. So I think that companies need to evaluate the passions of their employees and then respond to that, and then they can begin to incorporate that. For us, we talk about with our clients as it relates to transcendent purpose, little things though sometimes that make the biggest difference. Like we do a Be Benefits Wise educational with a lot of our clients end up with this. Usually if they have over 20 employees, it makes sense for them to be able to do this. But they do a Be Benefits Wise. We do an actual education about all the nuances of their benefits. And we talk about in that every single time, ways to eliminate waste in the system. There is no question, because that I think all of us would agree, I guess is a better way to say this. I think all of us agree that there is we are operating in a broken healthcare system. The ecosystem of health insurance and healthcare consumption, the mix of government and public and private, it's not working really well. There's brokenness that's causing all kinds of political divide and divide and division and whatnot. When you as a consumer begin consuming better, you help eliminate waste, which helps the whole system. You can be doing things beyond just your vote that has material impact on the system. And if I can get people to think about their health insurance that way and help them understand that they have power over this, like using telemedicine rather than going to an emergency room for a headache, right? Or for a rash, or for pink eye. Like, don't go to the emergency room that's going to bill your insurance $1,500. Call Teledoctor and it's $40 and you save yourself a trip to the ER. But if we can think about it, it's not like, hey, this is a good idea. It's like, hey, this is actually creating change that you want to see in the system. Then you're using your insurance in a way that's bigger than yourself. You know, it all comes down to getting it all the way down to that granular level and helping people learn, because it's educational. People don't think that way unless somebody educates them.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. You know, the insights have been fantastic. I'm with Nathan Craig, founder of Culture Insurance. And a couple quick last questions as we wrap up. And I thank everyone for being on today. Feel free to use the chat box if you have any questions. I'll work them in. We've gotten several questions that I've worked in today. So I'd love to get your thoughts or your questions answered. And I know Nathan would be happy to answer them as well. We have dealt with unprecedented change in what people face, what people care about, how people exist. And every business, regardless of their field, even if they're screaming busier than they've ever been or they're quieter than they've ever been, they are dealing with a new reality. How has that change impacted your business, and how have you responded to that? So what's different for you in this environment now that wasn't there before?
Aside from laws that have just come crashing in and changing every day, and carriers making decisions like, hey, forever, you know, since 1992, you haven't been able to make changes to your insurance without a qualifying event. All of a sudden, like, things like that are just blown up. They're just like, yeah, if you want to change plans right now, go for it. You know, COVID wasn't a thing really, right? And now that it is, insurance carriers are just making wholesale changes is saying you have 100% coverage for this, or the government's basically saying you need to cover these things, and they're going, okay, and it's just totally radically transformed overnight, all kinds of coverages. But I think that's COVID, and there's a lot there. I mean, people have been through the ringer over the last 3 months, emotionally, economically. It's been massive, and we've been heartbroken in seasons over just the pain that people are experiencing. I think, though, right now, the conversations that are taking place around race, around inequality, around brokenness within the context of justice and authority, I don't yet know for sure how it's going to impact my industry per se, but I know it's affecting my clients. And I know what I'm thankful for, the kinds of conversations we're having with clients is like 40 minutes about social issues and about 20 minutes on insurance, right? I mean, it's reshaped every conversation. And I'm thankful for that because it's created momentum that I'm hopeful is lasting. Even if I can be this honest and vulnerable about this, like some of the things that I've sat down and thought about in all of this is how is it, I have an industry, I'm in an industry that is, I'll just be really candid, really white. I'm in a very white industry, and it's a very successful industry. And I've wondered, what would it look like to add diversity to my industry? How do I bring about that kind of change to actually create reform of gender, of ethnicity in my industry? And those are the kinds of things that are going on in my mind right now, because I just think it's something that is long overdue, but somebody's got to make that change. You just can't, if I just keep passing this insurance company down to my kids or something like that, I'm not creating diversity in a whole industry that needs diversity. And I think those kinds of things are real. Those are real conversations that happen. How do you create interest in this industry and create diversity in this industry? I think it needs to happen. And that's a bigger conversation, but those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it says so much about your character that you don't necessarily have to pivot out of, well, I used to think this and now I'm thinking this, and you're advancing and you're moving as the wind blows, but really it just reinforces that love of people and creating that opportunity for everyone to be able to advance and impact their community in a positive way. And so I appreciate what you bring to the table every day. I appreciate how you uplift those around you and improve the lives of the people that you serve and the people in your organization. It's been exciting to watch you grow. Last question for you, and then again, I'm here with Nathan Craig from Culture Insurance. If you have any questions, feel free to work into the text box any questions for me. But as you learn about this and you gain experience and you have knowledge, how do you identify somebody that is that next person you want to mentor? How do you identify, here's somebody that I think I can help. Here's things I've learned along the way. Here's a voice that now I can deliver because I'm only able to help people because I've made so many mistakes. I can tell them what not to do more than I can tell them what to do. And I know you share that vision, but identifying how to help somebody and mentor other people. So when you're going to that, what's next for you? What's next for Culture? What's next for that group of people that you're trying to mentor? So I'd love to talk about that as we close.
Yeah, I think there's a common thread that's come through this whole conversation, Ryan, and I appreciate you allowing this dialogue to take place. And I'm very, very thankful for this time. It starts with what someone is committed to in their life. And then it's just applying it in an area of specialization. So it's saying, I want to change the world. I want to improve people's lives. I want to create positive impact on my culture, on my society, on those around me through. And then if that's the question mark, then I want to mentor you how to do that through insurance. I think the people that that's just a mindset that needs to be there. I can give you the skill set. We can get you there, but it's got to start with that mindset. And the one other thing I would say on that is that people in the insurance industry, my background, part of what's helped me, I think what's helped me with my own success in this industry, if I can put it that way, being able to create change and make impact and grow a company, part of growing a company is that I had an intimate familiarity with the nonprofit space. And it started with knowing nonprofits, working in nonprofits and existing in that world, and then being able to initially come out and market to nonprofits. I was able to go and say, I could sit down and talk, right, 40 minutes about nonprofit and 20 minutes about insurance and build a relationship that then, and then as I was developing the skills to make the impact in their company that I wanted, I was already able to build a relationship that was lasting. A lot of those, almost all, if not all those companies, that the first 10 companies I worked with, 9 of them were nonprofits. So if somebody has a skill in construction, or somebody has a skill in a background in sports or anything else, they could take, or e-commerce or whatever, they could take that industry knowledge, marry it with insurance, and then go and make a lot of difference and a lot of impact on society. So those are the kind of people that would, would love to bring into the industry and train up and equip to be the next generation of influencers in the insurance space.
Well, Nathan, thank you so much. Thrilled to have had you on today. Your story and your message resonates so well with me, and I know it does with everyone that's going to hear this in the future, to everyone that's on today. We wish you and Culture Insurance all the best, and we can't wait to see what you guys do next. So thank you, Nathan,
Thanks,
so much. We're going to move into just open questions and open forum. So Nathan, thank you. And that closes our session, and we'll all stay on for questions.